Jung made a disturbing discovery after treating patients for 30 years. Not a single person who came to him in the second half of life, over 35, was suffering from what they thought they were suffering from. Every single one was actually dying from the same hidden disease. They had built the perfect life for someone who didn't exist. They were suffocating inside lives designed for a stranger, and time was running out to become who they really were. The successful executive weeping in Jung's office wasn't depressed about his marriage. He was mourning the artist he never became. The devoted mother wasn't having anxiety attacks about her children. Her psyche was screaming about the woman she'd buried alive under the role of mother. They'd spent decades perfecting the wrong life, and their unconscious was done waiting. I'm about to share Jung's blueprint for not wasting the short time you have, why the first half of life is supposed to be wasted in a specific way, why your midlife crisis is actually your psyche's wake-up call, and why the approach to death is when real life finally begins. Here's what Jung discovered that terrified him. Most people die without ever having lived. Not physically, they breathe, work, reproduce, age. But psychologically, they never individuate, never become themselves, never live their own life. They're born as potential, die as potential, and in between, they just perform scripts written by others. Jung watched successful people reach their deathbeds in despair, realizing they'd climbed the wrong mountain. He saw parents who'd lived only through their children, discovering too late they'd never lived for themselves. He witnessed entire lives spent accumulating things that meant nothing to the person accumulating them. The tragedy wasn't that life is short, it's that people waste it being someone they're not. They spend decades building lives that look good from outside, but feel empty from inside. They sacrifice their authentic path for social approval, then wonder why success feels like failure, why achievement feels hollow, why they have everything but feel nothing. Jung's insight was profound. Life isn't actually short if you live it as yourself. It only feels short when you realize you've been living as someone else. A single day lived authentically contains more life than decades of performance. An hour of genuine selfhood holds more existence than years of pretense. But here's the problem. Society is designed to make you waste your life. From birth, you're programmed with others' values, goals, definitions of success. By the time you realize you're living the wrong life, you think it's too late to change. So, you double down on the mistake, wasting even more time on a life that was never yours. Jung's solution isn't time management or productivity hacks. It's psychological revolution, understanding the stages of life, recognizing when you're living falsely, and having the courage to become who you actually are before time runs out. Jung's first principle revolutionizes how we think about time. Life has two distinct halves with opposite purposes, and trying to live the second half like the first is how most people waste their later years. The morning of life is for establishing ego. The afternoon is for discovering self. The first half of life, roughly until 35 to 40, has a biological and social agenda. Build an ego, establish a career, create a family, find your place in society. This isn't wrong or wasteful. It's necessary. You need a strong ego before you can transcend it. You need a place in the world before you can question whether it's your place. But here's where people waste their lives. They think the first half's agenda applies forever. They spend their entire existence strengthening ego, accumulating achievements, building external identity. They're playing the first half's game in the second half's territory. like trying to use morning strategies in evening time. The second half of life has a completely different purpose, not building ego, but transcending it, not accumulating, but integrating, not becoming somebody, but becoming yourself. Jung called this the afternoon of life, and it requires entirely different values than the morning. Thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life, Jung wrote. Worse still, we take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and ideals will serve us as before. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. One of Jung's patients, a successful businessman in his 50s, came to therapy in profound depression. He'd achieved everything: wealth, status, power, but felt dead inside. He was still playing the first half's game of accumulation when his psyche was demanding second half transformation. He was trying to solve a spiritual problem with material solutions. Jung helped him understand the depression wasn't a problem, it was a message. His psyche was saying, "We've built enough ego. Time to discover self." When the man shifted from asking, "How can I get more?" to "Who am I really?" his depression lifted, not because he solved it, but because he understood its purpose. This is the first key to not wasting life. Recognize which half you're in and live according to its purpose. If you're in the first half, build your ego without apology. You'll need it strong for what comes later. If you're in the second half, stop playing the first half's game. The time for becoming somebody is over. The time for becoming yourself has begun. Jung's second insight about time is devastating. The life you're not living doesn't disappear. It accumulates as regret, bitterness, and shadow projections onto others. Every path not taken, every potential not expressed, every authentic impulse suppressed, they all become the unlived life that haunts your actual life. The most terrifying thing, Jung observed, is to accept oneself completely. Why terrifying? Because accepting yourself means acknowledging all the lives you could have lived but didn't, all the people you could have been but aren't. Most people would rather stay busy with the wrong life than face the grief of their unlived lives. The unlived life manifests in specific ways. The parent who sacrificed their dreams becomes bitter toward their children's freedom. The employee who never started their business resents entrepreneurs. The person who chose security over passion judges those who took risks. We hate in others what we didn't allow in ourselves. Jung discovered this through his own unlived life. The artist he never became haunted him until he started painting. The mystic he suppressed tormented him until he embraced his visions. The fuller human he could be demanded expression through what became his red book, the record of reclaiming his unlived life. But here's Jung's crucial insight. It's never too late to live your unlived life. Not necessarily externally. You might not become a professional artist at 60, but psychologically, you can integrate the artist. Live from that creative place. Express that suppressed aspect. The unlived life can be lived inwardly even when outer circumstances seem fixed. One of Jung's patients, a woman in her 70s, grieved the adventurous life she never lived, choosing security and convention instead. Jung didn't say, "It's too late." He helped her see that the adventurer still lived within her, wanting expression. She began taking small risks, exploring new ideas, approaching each day as an adventure. She couldn't live the external adventure she'd missed, but she could live from the adventurous spirit she'd suppressed. This transforms how we think about wasted time. Time isn't wasted when you're living your actual life, even if it seems unproductive. Time is wasted when you're not living your life at all, when you're so busy being who you should be that you never become who you are. The question isn't, what should I achieve before I die? But, what parts of me need to live before I die? Your unlived life isn't gone, it's waiting. And every moment you spend letting it emerge is a moment truly lived, regardless of external achievement. Jung's third principle sounds morbid, but is liberating. Consciousness of death is what makes life precious and purposeful. People waste their lives precisely because they live as if they're immortal, as if there's always more time to become themselves. Death isn't life's enemy. It's life's most honest teacher. Shrinking away from death is something unhealthy and abnormal, Jung wrote, which robs the second half of life of its purpose. He wasn't advocating morbid obsession, but conscious awareness that time is limited, and this limitation is what creates meaning. Without death, nothing would matter because everything could be postponed infinitely. Jung observed that people who consciously face their mortality live differently, not frantically, trying to cram everything in, but deliberately, choosing what truly mattered. They stopped wasting time on others' expectations because death revealed those expectations as irrelevant. They stopped postponing authentic life because death showed there might not be a tomorrow. The approach of death acts like a psychological filter, revealing what's essential and what's waste. That promotion you're killing yourself for, would it matter on your deathbed? That approval you're desperately seeking, will it comfort you when dying? That authentic expression you're postponing, will you regret not living it? Jung himself lived with acute awareness of mortality, partly due to his health issues and near-death experience. This didn't make him pessimistic, it made him intensely present. Every day could be the last, so every day needed to be lived authentically. Every conversation could be final, so superficiality was waste. Every moment was borrowed from death, so every moment mattered. One patient came to Jung terrified of death, organizing his entire life around avoiding any risk, any danger, any reminder of mortality. Jung helped him see the paradox. By avoiding death, he was avoiding life. His safety was a tomb. His security was deadness. He was so afraid of dying that he never lived. When the man began consciously contemplating his mortality, not morbidly but honestly, everything shifted. Knowing he would die made each day precious. Understanding time was limited made choices clearer. Accepting mortality made him paradoxically more alive. He stopped wasting time on safety and started spending it on meaning. This is the gift of mortality. It reveals what matters. When you know time is limited, you stop wasting it on unlimited trivial pursuits. When you accept you'll die, you finally start living. When you embrace the end, you can fully inhabit the middle. Jung's fourth key to not wasting life is profound. Stop living only literally and start living symbolically. Most people exhaust themselves pursuing literal, concrete goals. More money, better house, perfect relationship, missing that these are symbols for psychological needs that can be met more directly. When someone says they want $1 million, Jung would ask, what does that symbolize? Security, freedom, validation, power? The literal million might be impossible or take decades to achieve, but the symbolic need can often be met immediately through psychological work. People waste their lives chasing literal expressions of symbolic needs. Jung lived this principle. His tower at Bollingen wasn't just a literal building. It was a symbol of his inner development, each room representing aspects of his psyche. His stone carvings weren't just art. They were symbolic expressions of psychological realities. He wasn't just literally living, he was symbolically becoming. This symbolic approach transforms everything. That career you're pursuing, what does it symbolize? That relationship you're seeking, what psychological need does it represent? That achievement you're chasing, what inner state does it symbolize? Often the symbol can be fulfilled without the literal achievement. One ambitious patient spent 20 years trying to become CEO, sacrificing everything for this goal. Jung helped him explore what CEO symbolized: being seen as valuable, having authority over his life, feeling purposeful. Through psychological work, he achieved these symbolic goals without becoming literally CEO. He found value through service, authority through self-knowledge, purpose through individuation. The man realized he'd wasted decades pursuing the literal expression when the symbolic fulfillment was always available. He could have been living as the psychological equivalent of CEO all along, self-directed, valuable, purposeful, without the literal title. This doesn't mean abandoning all literal goals, but understanding what they symbolize and pursuing the symbol directly when possible. Why waste 30 years trying to literally climb Everest when what you really want is the symbolic experience of transcending limitations, which you can achieve through psychological work today? Jung's insight is radical. Most of what we literally pursue is symbolic of psychological needs. When we understand the symbol and address it directly through inner work, we stop wasting time on unnecessary literal pursuits. We can achieve psychological wealth without literal millions, psychological success without literal fame, psychological fulfillment without literal perfection. Jung's ultimate principle for not wasting life. The only purpose that doesn't become meaningless is individuation, becoming who you truly are. Everything else, success, family, achievement, can fulfill the first half of life, but only individuation fulfills the second half and gives meaning to the whole. Individuation isn't self-improvement or self-optimization. It's the process of differentiating yourself from collective patterns, while integrating all aspects of your psyche. It's becoming the unique person you were meant to be, not the generic person society shaped you into. It's the only goal that gets more meaningful as death approaches. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung wrote, is to become who you truly are, not who you could be, should be, or wish to be, but who you actually are beneath all the false layers. This isn't a destination, but a process, not an achievement, but an unfolding. Most people waste their lives avoiding individuation because it requires facing everything they've rejected about themselves. It means integrating the shadow, confronting the unconscious, sacrificing the ego's agenda for the self's purpose. It's psychologically demanding, socially isolating, and existentially terrifying. So people choose easier goals that ultimately mean nothing. Jung's own individuation journey shows what's possible when you don't waste life on lesser purposes. He sacrificed professional standing to explore his visions. He risked sanity to map the unconscious. He chose psychological truth over social approval. The result? A life so fully lived that it continues influencing millions after his death. But individuation isn't just for exceptional people. Jung worked with ordinary individuals who chose individuation over conventional success. A housewife who became a profound artist. A businessman who became a healer, a teacher who became truly himself. They didn't achieve external greatness, but they achieved something greater. They became who they were meant to be. One elderly patient told Jung he felt he'd wasted his life because he'd achieved nothing noteworthy. Jung helped him see that his life's purpose wasn't external achievement, but internal realization. Through individuation work, even in his final years, the man discovered and expressed aspects of himself that had been dormant for decades. He died not successful by society's standards, but complete by his own, individuated. This is the ultimate wisdom about time. A life spent individuating is never wasted, regardless of external achievement. Every moment spent becoming more yourself is a moment fully lived. Every step toward psychological wholeness is a step toward life's actual purpose. Jung's complete philosophy of life's brevity and how to spend it wisely reveals a radical reorientation. Life has two halves with different purposes. Build ego, then transcend it. Your unlived life haunts you until you psychologically live it. Consciousness of death reveals what truly matters. Living symbolically fulfills needs faster than literal pursuit. Individuation is the only purpose that doesn't become meaningless. These principles don't make life longer, they make it deeper. They don't add more time, they add more life to the time you have. They don't promise you'll achieve everything, they promise you'll become everything you're meant to be. Jung proved this with his own life. He didn't live particularly long, 86 years, but he lived fully. Not because he achieved more than others, but because he became himself more completely than most dare. His life was short by cosmic standards, but infinite by psychological standards. He individuated, and that made every moment count. Here's what Jung discovered about life's shortness. It's not a problem to solve, but a gift to receive. The limitation of time is what makes choices matter, makes becoming urgent, makes individuation necessary. If you had infinite time, you could waste infinite time. Because time is finite, wasting it becomes tragic. But here's the liberation. You can stop wasting time right now. Not by doing more, achieving more, cramming more in, but by asking Jung's essential question: am I living my life or someone else's? If the answer is someone else's, every moment continuing that way is waste. If the answer is your own, every moment is fully lived. The midlife crisis you're dreading or experiencing, that's your psyche saying time is running out to become yourself. The depression about achievement, that's yourself saying you're achieving the wrong things. The anxiety about death, that's life demanding you finally live it. Jung's prescription is both simple and revolutionary. Spend the time you have left becoming who you are. Not who you think you should be, not who others want you to be, but who you actually are in your depths. This isn't selfish. It's the greatest gift you can give the world. An individuated person enriches everyone around them simply by being authentic. Start here. Identify one aspect of your unlived life, something you've always wanted to be or express but haven't. Now find a way to live it symbolically, if not literally, internally, if not externally, psychologically, if not physically. Give that suppressed part of yourself permission to exist, even if just for an hour a day. Watch what happens when you stop wasting time on who you're not and start spending it on who you are. The days don't get longer, but they get deeper. The years don't multiply, but they intensify. Life doesn't extend, but it expands. Jung's ultimate message about life's shortness is this: it's not about how much time you have, but how much you're yourself during that time. A single day lived as your authentic self contains more life than decades lived as someone else. A moment of genuine individuation holds more existence than years of mere survival. Life is short, too short to waste being anyone but yourself, too brief to spend on others' dreams, too precious to sacrifice for false purposes. But it's exactly long enough to individuate, to become whole, to live as yourself. The clock is ticking, not to frighten you into frantic action, but to wake you into authentic being. Every moment you spend reading this is a moment you could be individuating. Every second you waste on the wrong life is a second stolen from the right one. Jung would ask you, if you knew you had only a year left, would you spend it the way you're spending today? If not, why are you assuming you have more than a year? Why are you postponing your actual life for a tomorrow that might not come? If you're ready to stop wasting time and start individuating, subscribe to this channel where I decode Jung's deepest insights about becoming who you truly are. Watch the video on your screen now about the individuation process, Jung's map for not dying with your music still in you. Remember, life isn't short if you live it as yourself. It's only short when you realize you've been living as someone else. The choice is yours, and you're making it right now.